Welcome to the Soul Revival Podcast, where we have deep and meaningful conversations exploring modalities, tools, and healing, guiding you back to your most expansive soul self.
Hello, and welcome to the Soul Revival Podcast. Thank you for joining us on today's episode. Lindsay and I are eager to kind of discuss the importance of tuning into our body. And Lindsay has a lot of examples here on how she uses her body for intuition versus feeling into the vibration of others. And, I'll let her kick off this episode and just kind of explain what's on her heart recently. I feel like this has kind of been going on collectively as well. So here we
Absolutely.
go.
I feel like this is definitely parallel to somatics, but I feel like it goes beyond the somatics episodes that we did in season one. If you have not listened to those, I would encourage you to go back and do so. But I think this is, for me, it's been coming up a lot. And I agree with you, Autumn. I know you've been talking about it in client sessions. We've been talking about it in the community. And it's really not attaching to other people's energy. And by other people, I don't mean just individuals. I mean like the collective. We've talked before, and Autumn and I are both pretty religious about not watching the news regularly or, attaching to too many things that could get into our field that would create disruption and negativity. We're really intentional about what we consume. And I think this is somewhat related to that. But if you're out there living in the world, whether you're working for somebody else, whether you're running your own business and you have shareholders or investors, whether you're running a community, or if you're, part of like a collective group of any kind, or just in your friend group or your family, there's always people who are going to, and I feel like especially work wise, because you're subjected to people's energy and maybe you can't necessarily get away from it because you don't necessarily have a choice. We can be selective about who our chosen family is and who our chosen friends are, but sometimes, like with work situations, we're just around certain energies, and they might be phenomenal people and energetically aligned with us, but they might be pushing an agenda or an urgency or a certain feeling on you that is causing disruption for you because it's not in alignment with your trust. And I think this actually goes to how, when we're spiritually in tune and when we've done this deep work, and we always need to, right? It's an ongoing project. That's why we're here in this earth school. But and I think this is a test ultimately when we have people in our field that are kind of pushing an agenda on us, or pushing, or just push energy, period. Um, Not attaching to that and staying true. And it is very, very challenging to do it, especially, if you're constantly being forced to absorb the energy and kind of be around it and not have a choice but to be around it. Again, especially like if it's somebody you work with or in a, work type of situation. But I think it's a constant reminder for us to anchor into the spiritual lessons that we know are truth. And even though it's very difficult, and I'm going through it and I know how difficult it is, and I feel like just collectively we're going through a lot of heavy energy right now, I think it's really, really important for us to anchor into our truth that magic and miracles are always available for us. And this is where I feel like, and I know we talked about in season one, the importance of journaling, like going back to your journals and showing yourself the evidence that, things do happen for you and magic and miracles come out of nowhere, and all of the amazing evidence that you have of that happening in the past, in the recent past, and being able to anchor into that and not attach to somebody else's outcome or urgency.
Lindsay, I have had so many sessions this week, and I know you and I have been going back and forth on like this conversation because Spirit is showing me this is happening a lot. Like, this is happening a lot, and people aren't tuning into their central nervous system. So it's causing a lot more disruption in their field. you do the work, you're doing the work, and it's still causing a little bit of disruption. You know the art of detachment and how magic will happen. But for those that, are kind of living through it and they're like, how do we detach? Like, how do we detach? What are some ways that you detach?
We want to express deep gratitude for everybody who sponsors the podcast. It really, really matters. It allows us to invest our time, effort, and energy in bringing you the most relevant spiritual content. So if you're feeling called, please subscribe, click like, leave a review, or sponsor the podcast. We very, very much appreciate you.
I mean, for me, honestly, a core one that I've talked about for so many different applications, but movement is huge for me. I think that's probably the fastest way for me to get back to my own truth is to do a movement practice. It doesn't have to be long, but that's definitely a big one for me.
Spirit's showing me over the summer how I would go on walks and downhill. I would feel the energy like moving off of me, whatever anyone is placing in your energy field, blowing away, like the wind blowing it away. And then when you're walking up the hill, you're calling back your sovereign energy. You're calling back your wisdom. You're calling back your personal power because you're pushing through. You're pulling up that energy. That's one way because it just got brought back to me and you love movement. So maybe that was a little divine message for you. But another way to really get in tune with your body is using your senses, using your five senses. What are you smelling? What are you seeing? What are you hearing? Another quick one that I like to do is drop my tongue. Dropping your tongue can bring your spirit back into your body almost immediately. I think it releases all tension and just allows ease in. If you're one that's kind of spirit showing me this right now, if you're one that's kind of entangling in the thoughts as if they're your own, one art of a detachment I like to do is just to honor the emotion through my body and not try to figure out why the emotion is there. Knowing the why is important, but sometimes the emotion is there to be released. It's nothing that's going on in your present moment. It could be something from the past that's just here to be felt, to be released, and not to tie in and try to figure out why the emotion is there. Um, Spirit has also showed me that, there's so many different forms and so many different ways. Some people work with fire elements, some people work with air, they work with grounding. There's so many different elements of the earth that we all uniquely connect to. So if you feel you connect more to air, maybe that walking exercise would work more with you. If you connect more with grounding, releasing all of the thought process that's going on, the pressure into the universe to be transmuted. I love working with the fire element. I think that fire is a wonderful way to just write everything down, all of your emotions that you're feeling, get raw with it and then safely burning it. I don't know what magic is done beyond that, but it literally makes me feel like a whole new being. So these are just some ways that I really like to bring my spirit back into my body when people are putting pressure on me or really putting the weight of the world on my shoulders. And this comes with a lot of healers because deep down we want people to be in a joy state. And if we can help them be in that joy state, oh my goodness, I'm all in willingly, like all hands in willingly. Because it's a joy of mine to bring happiness to others. But this comes with a fine line of being the glue or bringing the happiness. So, making conscious decisions and intentions around how you want to show up to this position and putting boundaries around that. So it's not taking so much away. But yeah, there's so much going on in the world, in different people's lives, different people's realities, that spirit is like the only thing that us humans have to do right now is getting tuned with our own bodies to admit joy and love, however we do that, however that comes about. That is our mission right now, is just to experience the love vibration, however that comes about for you. And I think that doing it single-handedly in your own world emits ripple effects throughout the entire universe a lot faster than if you're trying to just appease everyone else. Not saying that's what's happening, but in some world it is. In some people's lives, that's exactly what's happening.
I think you're completely on to something there. And I'm going to come back to a couple of things that you just said that I think are really potent. But I think love and authenticity are like running on the same vibration. And so even though we might think we're making other people happy by like attaching to the way they want things or the outcome that they want, if it's not in alignment with our energy and what we intuitively know, it's actually in disalignment with the collective and the other person as well. So I think that's really a really good call out because as hard as it can be when you think you're causing disruption by not going with the flow of somebody else's, needs or what you think is going to make them happy, by fighting that and not adhering to that, like you're actually getting to a better place and you're getting into a higher vibration in your relationship with that person too, because you're now authentically both showing up as your true self, which is the energy of love.
I
And
love that.
I just want to say on your tongue trick, you mentioned about like lowering your tongue on our community recently. And that really resonated with me because if anybody else is listening is like this, I get super clenchy when I'm stressed and I'm not even aware of it. But like, being an athlete and having run competitively and everything my whole life, like, I think that's just like a go-to state as soon as I start to feel like anxiety or pressure on me, I just clench up. And I think probably every muscle in my body to some extent, whether I'm aware of it or not. But certainly in my mouth area, I tend to like bite my lower lip. Like if I'm like super stressed or trying to quote unquote figure something out, that's my go-to. And so I think that's a really, really great tip and trick that you gave both now on the podcast as well as in the community. Related to that, I would say you're getting clenchy because you're trying to figure something out. You're trying to figure out the answers. And if you tune into the energy of divine timing, maybe the answers aren't ready for you yet. Maybe you're not ready for the answers yet. Maybe there's something way beyond, like, I mean, we're all constantly trying to figure things out, put the puzzle pieces together, right? We're in our heads trying to figure out, well, if this then that, if that then this, how am I going to do this if this happens? And ultimately, as much as we want to show up and, do the things, make the moves, create the things that we're meant to create and be in alignment with our soul's purpose, we also have to recognize that we have such a narrow, limited view of what the possibilities actually are. So you might see in a situation that there's like three potential outcomes, but out of how many times in our lives have out of left field something happen that completely shifts the whole thing? And I know I've had so many times in my life where a situation, I think we were talking about this on the community recently as well, a situation looked a certain way and I could only see certain outcomes, and I was so stressed in it when I was living in it, and out of nowhere it completely shifted. And then, like, I don't know, maybe a few weeks later, maybe a month later, I don't even remember. And I was like so in my head and so stressed and like thought it was like such a huge deal. And I don't even remember it anymore, like a month later. So I
Isn't
think
that so
that
funny? It's like human life is so hard because we do get so entangled in things that are so irrelevant. Like I I'm an Aquarius moon, so detachment is kind of my art style. Like I'm really good at detaching, but sometimes when I'm in it, especially being an empath, I've noticed that when anyone's in my house, I'm attaching to their energy. Okay, what do they need? What are they feeling? And then I become that energy as if I'm them. And spirit's like, Autumn, why are you doing this to yourself? Like you don't have to like be 10 steps ahead of them. Always just detach, become your authentic self. And if they need something, I'm sure they'll ask. I'm always like, are you okay? Do you need this? Do you need that? Just being hyper aware, but it's not needed anymore. We are in an energy realm of protection that being that hyper vigilance of other people's emotions, it's not needed. We need to take a step back from doing that. We, as in me, because it's really channeling, just opening yourself up to. becoming everything that you're not, you know? And actually, we talked about this recently too. Sometimes you feel other people's emotions
Yeah.
wholeheartedly because you're meant to transmute them. Sometimes if you're living and you're feeling those emotions and it's someone that's like close to you or someone that, like my mother, I'm constantly feeling her emotions. And I've asked Spirit 1,000 times, why can't I cloak myself when it comes to my mom? And Spirit shows me it's because you're transmuting. You're transmuting her energy to help her align with her higher self, to let her know that it's okay, that life doesn't have to be so serious, that there's so much color here. There's so much color in this world now. It's not black or white anymore. So knowing and trusting that we're always protected is important too.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I feel like as empaths, sometimes it's easier and sometimes it's so much harder. Like if you feel deeply emotionally connected to somebody, especially if you know like they've struggled, maybe they have had loss or and or like depression or have very specific emotional needs that you feel very tied in with. I think it can be even more difficult as an empath to not let yourself go down a rabbit hole that may or may not even be accurate. Like they might not even be feeling the things or thinking the things or attaching to the things that you are. And so it's sometimes I feel like we just, it make it's, and it's, it can be so much harder as an empath to like check yourself and not go down that emotional rabbit hole.
Exactly. And that's like, the gift of being psychic is amazing, but also like living in the future, there's no point to do that because at any point, someone's free will can shift course and what you were tapping into completely becomes irrelevant because it took a whole new course. So if you are psychic and you're always constantly living in the future, pulling yourself back into your body using the techniques that we mentioned earlier is a great way to kind of just live in the present moment. Spirit's also been coming through because they're saying that we're kind of at like a state of energy where if you aren't feeling anything at all, like if you're not feeling anything, like just, okay, I'm here, you're actually living in the present moment. You're actually living in the present moment. If you are just so content with life, you're just kind of in the ethers, just floating around. You're in the present moment. And that's the time when channeling comes online and it's loud and you can follow the breadcrumbs. Obviously, if you're experiencing, depression or things like that, check in with your doctor. I don't want to, disclaimer here, but we're kind of at this like standstill right now where feeling nothing is actually a time to rest and start to feel into your body because it's the present moment. It is the present moment.
And I think if you do find yourself going down that rabbit hole, a good kind of check and balance is to ask yourself, okay, a week from now, a month from now, kind of what we were talking about a few minutes ago, a week from now, a month from now, am I even going to remember this? How am I going to feel about this? Am I going to be concerned about this? Because I know I've had plenty of times where I've literally lost sleep over something because I just can't let it go, like trying to micromanage the outcome that I have no control over, anyways. And so, just remind yourself, where am I going to be with this in a week, in a month? Even a couple days from now, and is this really going to be a thing? And what is the scope of my life this is going to actually impact? And chances are it's probably pretty narrow, and it probably won't even be something you're concerned about a month from now. And one thing I also really like to do is to, especially if it's something particularly heavy that I'm concerned about, I like to remind myself that I'm divinely guided and divinely protected. And every time that something challenging has happened in my life, spirit, my very, very amazing team of loved ones on the other side always show up for me every single time they show up for me. So tapping back into that truth helps me to know that what I'm dealing with is just a limited earth school problem.
And you can always zoom out. You can always zoom out and see
Exactly.
your higher self sitting up in the realms and like looking down on what's going on and looking at it from that perspective. Like, is this really that big? Is this
Yeah.
really that big or
And
can I
what
detach?
there's probably a lesson, a growth that occurred on the other side of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh man, I love this episode. I think that it's very important, especially just with everything that's going on collectively right now. You are exactly where you are meant to be. You are living life exactly the way you are meant to. Taking that step back and just living a life that's in alignment with you and the love that you're admitting out is so important right now. And that's really the mission of humanity, connecting how you need to connect, whatever element it is, but allowing yourself to feel into your body and comfort that central nervous system.
Absolutely. And I think reminding ourselves that we hold so much power, and being in the energy of love and not letting anybody dim our light or put us in the energy of hate or negativity, being in that positive energy and knowing that we outnumber the negative, and that we're this amazing collective force that truly has an impact. And the research proves it. If you look at organizations like Heart Maps and the power of intention and energetic exchange, it's so amazing. So keeping yourself in that knowledge and knowing that, this matters, and doing this light work, it really, really matters. And it is definitely why our souls signed up to be here in this specific incarnation.
Absolutely, Lindsay. Well, thank you to our listeners for another wonderful episode of the Soul Revival. We hope to see you back next week.
Bye.
If you loved today's episode, don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. Follow our podcast. We release a new episode each and every week, and join us on Facebook inside the Soul Revival community. Come be a part of the magic. We'll see you there.